Hello, everyone. Smokey Robinson finally confessed that there was one woman in his life who, despite all the fame, the fortune, and the fleeting romances of the Motown era, still owned a piece of his soul. The world stopped to listen. Because behind the legendary voice that gave us timeless classics like Cruisin', Tracks of My Tears, and Being With You, was a man who had lived through love in all its intoxicating beauty and its unbearable heartbreak. For decades, Smokey Robinson, the soft-spoken poet of Motown, seemed to glide effortlessly through the world of music and love, his smile hiding a lifetime of stories that the public only heard glimpses of in his songs. He was Motown's golden boy, the singer, songwriter, and producer who helped build the sound of an entire generation. But what fans never truly knew until recently, when Smokey spoke with a rare vulnerability, was that behind all those love songs was one woman, not his wife, not the glamorous figures rumored to orbit his world, but the woman he called the one that got away, the woman who inspired some of his deepest, most personal lyrics, and the one who, even now, decades later, still lingers in his memory like a melody he can't stop humming. Smokey's story begins in the streets of Detroit, long before the fame. Born William Robinson Jr. in 1940, he was a kid with a gift for words and a voice smooth enough to make anyone stop and listen. By the time he formed The Miracles and caught the attention of a young Berry Gordy, Smokey's destiny was already written in rhythm and rhyme. Yet while his career was ascending, his heart was being shaped by the complicated web of love and temptation that came with it. Smokey married his childhood sweetheart, Claudette Rogers, in 1959, a fellow member of The Miracles and a woman as talented as she was loyal. Together, they were the first couple of Motown, beautiful, magnetic, and untouchable. But behind the scenes, their marriage was marked by turmoil, infidelity, and the pressures of the music industry. Smokey has never shied away from admitting that his success and ego often led him astray, that he loved too many women too deeply and too carelessly. "I was a man with too many songs in my heart," he once said, "and not enough wisdom to know which one was true." And yet, through all of that, there was one woman who stood apart from all others, not just as a muse, but as something deeper, something spiritual. For years, rumors have circulated that Smokey's great love was none other than Diana Ross, his lifelong friend and fellow Motown superstar. He and Diana grew up together under Berry Gordy's watchful eye, rising from the same Detroit neighborhoods to global fame. Their chemistry was undeniable, on stage and off, and for decades, Smokey danced around the truth, denying and deflecting questions about the nature of their bond. But recently, when the 80-something icon sat down for a reflective interview about his life and legacy, he finally opened up in a way that stunned fans and fellow musicians alike. "Diana was the love of my life," Smokey said quietly, his eyes distant, his voice trembling. "We were young, reckless, and caught up in something that felt bigger than both of us." He revealed that their connection wasn't just physical or emotional, it was creative, spiritual, almost cosmic. "She understood me," he said, "not the singer, not the celebrity, me. She knew what made me tick, what broke me, and what healed me." Smokey admitted that their bond began when both were still married, he to Claudette and Diana to her own complicated personal and professional relationships, but that the pull between them was impossible to resist. "We tried to fight it," he confessed. "We told ourselves it wasn't right, that it would hurt too many people. But love doesn't always listen to reason." He spoke about stolen moments, secret conversations in dimly lit studios, and the emotional intimacy that grew from their shared journey through the chaos of Motown's golden years. "When you make music with someone you love," he said, every note becomes a memory. Smokey admitted that some of his most famous songs, the ones fans assumed were written about his wife or about general heartbreak, were actually written for her. "It was Diana in my heart when I wrote More Love," he revealed. "It was her voice I heard when I wrote Ooh Baby Baby. Every word was me talking to her, or about her, even when I couldn't say it out loud." That revelation hit like an emotional earthquake across the entertainment world, not just because of the romance itself, but because it shed new light on the lyrical genius that had defined Smokey Robinson's career. The longing, the bittersweet ache in his songs suddenly made sense in a new, heartbreaking way. These weren't just clever love lyrics, they were confessions set to melody. But as Smokey explained, great love stories in real life rarely have happy endings. The affair, if it could even be called that, eventually burned itself out under the weight of guilt, fame, and circumstance. "We knew we couldn't keep living like that," he said. "She had her path, I had mine, and no matter how much we loved each other, it wasn't enough to overcome everything else." When Diana Ross left Motown in 1981 to pursue her solo career in Hollywood stardom, Smokey said it felt like losing a part of himself. "When she left," he said, "it was like the music stopped for a while." He described how, even after decades apart, their connection never truly faded. "We could go months, even years without talking, but the moment we did, it was like no time had passed. That kind of connection doesn't die." Smokey also revealed that he and Diana have since made peace with their past. That time has mellowed what once burned too hot to handle. "We're family now," he said. "We've seen each other through everything: marriages, divorces, births, deaths, triumphs, and heartbreaks. We'll always have that bond, but it's different now. It's deeper." He said that when he looks back, he doesn't feel shame or regret, just gratitude. "If loving her was wrong," he said softly, "then I'm glad I was wrong. Because that love taught me everything I know about what it means to feel." His confession also opened old wounds for those who remembered the cost of that love. Claudette Robinson, his ex-wife, endured years of public humiliation as Smokey's infidelities became the stuff of gossip columns. She once said that every time she heard one of his love songs, she wondered who he really wrote it for. Now, with Smokey's admission, the answer is clear and painfully bittersweet. Yet Claudette herself has long since moved on, finding peace and forgiveness in her faith. Smokey, too, seems to be a man finally at peace with his past, no longer running from the truth. "I spent so many years hiding behind my songs," he said. "Now I just want to be honest about the life that made them." What makes Smokey Robinson's confession so powerful isn't just that it confirms one of Motown's most enduring rumors. It's that it reveals the heart of a man who has lived long enough to understand the difference between lust, passion, and love that never dies. His voice, still smooth and soulful even in his 80s, carries the weight of experience, of triumph and tragedy, of lessons learned too late. "Love," he said, "isn't always about who you end up with. Sometimes it's about who you never forget." And for Smokey, that person will always be Diana Ross, the woman who inspired his greatest songs, who broke his heart and healed it all at once, and who remains, even after all these years, the love of his life. Now, when fans listen to the tracks of My Tears, they'll hear it differently, not just as a hit song, but as a confession, a window into a man who spent his entire life putting his emotions into melodies because he couldn't always speak them out loud. When Smokey looks back, he says he has no regrets, only memories. "Every time I see her, I still smile," he said with a wistful laugh. "She'll always be my girl, even if she never was mine to keep." And that, perhaps, is the greatest tragedy and beauty of Smokey Robinson's life, that his heart, like his music, will forever belong to the one woman who could never truly be his, but who will always live in the rhythm of every song he's ever sung. Thanks for watching.